So I want to talk to you about a recent experience of mine. I was one of the projects that I work on is for GEM, and I was on a call where our client was talking about how passionate he was about what we had built for them, and it was really exciting to hear that. But at the same time, I kind of felt a little bit frustrated because I was realizing that I wasn't putting enough creativity into the project. And so as such, what I wanted to do was do some research into how can I be more creative. And I think that that's something that we should be bringing to all of our projects. And so I wanted to share that with you and kind of impart that knowledge of my experiences and what I learned to help you make your projects better through creativity. So this is my experience, but I want you to think about how it can apply to you. And in general, there is a set process for how someone is going to be creative. And it starts out with someone being an explorer. And what you need to do is be open to your environment and to everything that's around you, and figure out where the connections are with the problems that you have or the projects that you're working on, and see and draw those connections. And so this exploring phase is really just going through and figuring out, what are the wild ideas that might connect back to my work. And so one thing to think about was, so yesterday we all arrived here. We came into our hotel room, and our hotel room was really well put together. Everything was just right and perfect, right? And how does that, connect that back to something in your projects where we want to be able to display a very clean and well-kept product, right? Our code needs to be clean and well-kept. And that's just one of the kind of connections that I drew, but you can draw all your own and just think through that when you're experiencing different things. Once you have all these kind of ideas, you want to pick one and move forward with it. So you put on this artist hat, and you want to take this idea and kind of develop it further. So you start to ask yourself, what are the what-if scenarios? So what if I'm this idea? How can I develop it further? How do other people view this idea? And you can kind of force yourself to think outside of your normal thought process and bring in other ideas through this. And once you have this idea fully curated, at that point, it brings in the logical part. And at this point, you really need to validate that idea. And lots of times, people don't really have the mindset to validate their idea on the spot. So as a part of putting on this judge hat, you may also want to take a break from thinking through this idea. Lots of times you can be really excited about it and you want to kind of just forge ahead and make it happen, but give it a day and you're thinking more reasonably. Maybe you have some other ideas that would also make it better. But this is your judge phase. This is where logic sets in. But the previous roles, you want to leave logic out of it. Have some fun with your idea, draw a lot of connections that may seem crazy at first, and just develop those. But then once you have your idea and you say, yes, this is an idea that I want to move forward with, we all have a lot of great ideas, and lots of times they don't move forward with. But you need to not let that happen. Make your ideas come to reality by putting on your warrior hat. And for this role, it's really all about execution, setting up your strategy, setting up your deadlines to make the idea become a reality. So this is the process that creativity goes through. How does an idea evolve into reality? The problem is that a lot of people have what I would call mental locks that don't allow them to be creative. And so what I'm going to do is go through a set of mental locks and kind of explain how you can look beyond those. You need to be aware of them when they come up. And these are times where you say, no, like I'm not going to do this or I'm not going to do that, and then that ends creativity there. And so one of the big things that, or to start it off here, a lot of people think that there's one right idea for something. And lots of times we go in and we look at a problem and we say, here's an idea, and everybody says this idea is great. So then you have this groupthink that can cause a lot of problems. And so I would encourage you that the next time everybody agrees with an idea, that you take a step back and reanalyze it and look for that second right idea. And lots of time that's going to be a better idea. The next is that we need to look at metaphors to be able to bring other concepts in that we wouldn't normally look at. And so one example is with the cloud. So that helped a lot of people to understand how they can interpret servers and whatnot a lot better. And so what you can do with kind of being creative and seeing where things lead, you can kind of have the encouragement to try something totally different and crazy. And in this case, so this is something that you don't want to let logic sit in, right? Like I was saying before. And this is the Patagonian toothfish. And in 1977, Lee, I forget his last name, but he was going to the Chilean ports and looking for a different fish to bring back to the US. And when he did this, he came across this Patagonian toothfish, which is an ugly-looking fish, an ugly sounding name. But when he tried it, he realized that it was similar to the texture of bass, which was very common back in the U.S. And he also realized that it was a very bland flavor, but that led for a lot of chefs to be creative. And so he decided to take this back, but he also needed to kind of separate out, like, this is obviously not a bass, but I need to be able to get people interested in it. So this actually was remarketed as the Chilean sea bass, using Chilean to be specific enough that it had this sense of specialty to it, right? And it kind of drew people in, and now it actually started out as a replacement for halibut, and then grew into where it is today, where it's the same price as steaks. And meanwhile, this used to be caught as a byproduct and thrown back. So another thing that we tend to think is we need to follow the rules. And we kind of learned this growing up, that we need to stay within the lines when we're drawing. In this example, I'd like you to draw a line from A to B. And lots of times we're going to take this and we're going to start the path, and then we're going to hit a roadblock, and then we're going to backtrack. And then we do this a lot in our careers and daily life, where we hit a roadblock, we come back to the last known place where things were going well, and then we go a different direction. Another thing you could do here is start at B and go to A. And so starting at the end and kind of working your way back, which we do a lot in project management. But if you really want to be creative, what you really need to do is just think about what are the rules that we can break. And in this case, I never said that we actually had to stay in those lines, but that's what we're kind of taught to think. And so you can feel free to just draw a line directly from A to B. Another thing to think about is that creativity is not only about creating something new, but also how to get rid of ideas that might no longer be valid. And so this is the QWERTY keyboard, which you all are aware of, but it actually started back in the 1870s. There was a problem with very fast typewriters, or people who were very fast on typewriters, where keys were starting to jam. So they realigned the keys into the QWERTY keyboard formation to slow down the typewriters. And they actually moved like the O and the I over to be hit by weaker fingers. And this is something that hasn't been challenged for so long. And it was, oh, sorry about that. This is all right. This is an older version of the deck. I made some updates to it since. But next I was going to have a picture of the Dvorak keyboard. And so this idea was challenged. However, it didn't hold because this was so ingrained into people's daily lives that that couldn't be challenged. So I want you to kind of think about what are the things that can be challenged, and maybe there's something that we thought last year was a good idea, but it's no longer applicable. The next thing is that a lot of people think that play is kind of frivolous. Well, really, what you need to do with creativity is build upon other people's creativity. And this kind of references back to last year. We did an activity where we played a game where we said, let's talk about this and let's experience this, where you say yes and then continue on with another thought and you build on other people's ideas, versus when you say no to somebody and that idea is killed right away. And so what I want to do is challenge you in a group to have fun and be encouraging to other people. And when you are in a situation where you don't agree with someone, I challenge you to do a creative no. So instead of saying your idea is bad and ending it there, you need to also come up with a creative idea to replace that. Or you say, yes, but, and kind of say, here's another idea. I like your idea, but think about this. And this is also a concept that's very prevalent in Whose Line Is It Anyway, and in improv. Thank you. So the next thing I want to say is that if I talk to you and say, think of 5 cities that start with the letter M, you're going to be thinking about it right now, I hope, thinking through what are all of these cities. But if you kind of take some time off and say later tonight, you're probably going to think of a few extra ones. So when you're thinking through an idea, you should think not only at that time, but then later on, give yourself some time to go and do something else, and maybe that idea is going to develop further. Another thing is just being able to draw on other experiences. So do things that are not related to your regular life. So we live in a very specialized world where we tend to know more and more about less and less. And you need to take that time to go and experience other things, because you get that cross-pollination of ideas, and you find some similarities where where you wouldn't get that extra ideas otherwise. And so this one is a picture of someone dancing, with the significance of this is that Steve Jobs actually took a dance class when he was going to Reed College, and a lot of what he learned about perception and about movement was then applied when he went to go and work at Atari on games. Furthermore, there's some other ideas where we can see how cross-pollination of different areas has helped to create ideas. For instance, the development of drive-in banks came from drive-in restaurants. Roll-on deodorant came from the ballpoint pen. And in this case, this was a mathematician who was looking at not this person, but the idea of game theory came from a mathematician watching a poker game. The next thing is that, lots of times people say, you don't need to joke around. And so this is the Joker, but the idea behind this is that as the jester in old times is actually the person who was looked to as kind of the priest, the same significance or same level as a priest, in that he provided guidance to all of the kings and gave them a different viewpoint on something to help make their decisions better. So take some time to look at something differently, turn it upside down, think outside the box. Lots of times people say that you want to avoid ambiguity. And what I would say is that what you want to do is give people a beginning point and an end point and allow them to be creative. So it's really great to do that. Lots of times you don't want ambiguity, and there's a lot of reason for that. But when you're being creative, it's good to kind of encourage other people through providing that ambiguity and giving them the opportunity to be creative. The next is that a lot of people are uncomfortable about having errors or not succeeding. Pete Rose hit 4,200 times, 4,200 plus times. His batting average was 300. So he stepped up to the bat and failed 14,000 times. And he's kind of revered for his success, also his ability to gamble. But it's okay to fail. You need to focus on your successes, and failure will give you the opportunity to do better. A lot of people also just say, I'm not creative. If you think that you're not creative, you're not going to be creative. So give yourself the opportunity and say, I am going to be creative. I am going to figure out how to do X better, or how I can improve X. So what's next? I want all of you to go back to your projects and figure out, when I'm looking to solve a problem or when I'm looking to improve something, let's think about all of these mental locks that might be preventing me from getting the best solution possible. I also want to say that I think just in general, a good activity for you to do is think about 3 things that are inefficient in your current daily life. And you analyze those, kind of go through that creative thought process on how that can be better. And maybe you can't make it all better, but maybe there's 1 or 2 things that you can improve. So that's that. Thank you.